Good evening, everyone who is joining us today. I hope everyone's having a good day and a good week. Thank you all for attending our virtual event tonight. The Frankfurt Book Fair is this week, which is a very exciting event for book people, for the book world. So I really appreciate everyone's time here today. My name is Irene Chan, and I'm the program chair at the New York Book Forum. The New York Book Forum is a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to build bridges between the publishing world and the public. As part of our mission, we present a different program every month, almost every month throughout the year, and we alternate between in-person and virtual events. It's part of our mission to create opportunities for important conversations to happen and to curate events that we hope are interesting to people that are involved in books and are informative to you, whether you're a publisher or a bookseller, an educator, a student, or just an avid book consumer. We're a huge industry, and although we are a huge industry, it seems like it's a really small world sometimes. And I think that's because we're all here participating, and we build our community, and we're having conversations. So I'm sure you noticed we're virtual. And so following the formats of our in-person events, we have time reserved at the end for Q&A. The chat is open to all, so feel free to write in your comments in the chat and ask questions in the chat either during the program or at the end of the program. Program participants will have time to answer questions at the end. So today our program is about audiobooks. Audiobooks have seen consecutive double-digit growth in the last few years, and what was once considered a niche category now really commands a seat at the table when book deals are discussed. I think greatness can be heard, and you do hear it, and a skilled audiobook producer knows this, and they deliver it. So today our panelists are Anthony Goff, president at Blackstone Publishing, Kim Sayle, senior vice president at Hachette Audio. Our conversation will be led by Suzanne Galvez, director of Audiobooks editorial and publishing at Spotify. So thank you to our participants. Let's give you a round of applause. I'm in our participants.
Oh, real applause. Real virtual applause. Nice.
You can do the real virtual applause, yeah.
Great. Shall we go ahead and get started, Irene?
Yes, let's go ahead. Thank you, Suzanne.
We have a raised hand. Is there something we should take care of before we dive in?
Richard, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I thought I was applauding.
Oh.
I'm Suzanne. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm just super excited to be here today. Had the opportunity to work in the audiobook industry for the last 15 years. I was chief content officer at Findaway, a distributor and aggregator of audiobooks, before coming to Spotify by way of an acquisition, and I've had the really fun job of helping them launch and grow audiobooks over the last 3 years. We are incredibly fortunate today to have two legends in the audiobook industry with us, Anthony and Kim, who have both been champions and advocates of this format since early days of it. So Anthony, Kim, I'd love to invite you both to do a quick intro, to share a little bit about your background, and then we can dive into the history and evolution of audiobooks.
Sweet. Kim, take it away.
Oh, I get to go first.
Yep.
Actually, I think there's someone here from my past. I see Lara Vergoff. Hi, Lara. I came to audiobooks actually through book production, believe it or not. I was working at Book of the Month Cub on children's books packaged with cassettes, totally showing my age. And it was my CD manufacturer and cassette manufacturer who recommended me for a job at Time Warner Audiobooks. And I've now been with Hachette for 27 years. I was very young when I started, and middle school aged when I started back in those days. And I've really seen it grow from how popular the CD format to the digital format to, like you said, a kind of a niche format to what it is today, which is really amazing to see. And I really consider myself fortunate to have kind of gone to the audiobook side of things back in the day.
Absolutely. I feel fortunate because I've known Kim for many years, and I've known Suzanne for many years, and like you alluded to earlier, Irene, it's pretty big industry, but it is very familial, and even more so inside of the audiobook space, right? Like we have a lot of publishers in the game, but I always felt like we're less competitors and more all in this together. I started my career at Macmillan back in the day, worked at Penguin for a few years in sales and marketing before I went to Simon and Schuster for about 8 years. And my longest tenure thus far had been at Hachette, and that's where I worked very closely with Kim for almost 17 plus years in the audiobook space and content development and large print. And I've been at Blackstone now almost 3 years. So Blackstone's been doing audiobooks since 1987. They were one of the first in the business to kind of get in and have been like a big part of the industry ever since. So I'm happy to be with you all today.
Awesome. So you guys have spent a lot of time in the industry and you've seen it change and grow over time. I'd love to get your perspective on like, what do you think have been the biggest contributors to growth over time and like how it's become one of the fastest growing formats and change? Kim, why don't you pick?
Yes.
We could talk all day about audio.
We could talk all day about that. So I think the main thing, obviously, is I think the first thing was the phone, right? Was everybody had the phone in their hand. Audible came into the space and had that app where you made it just so easy and so accessible. That was the first thing when everybody started having a phone in their pocket. I think more recently, it's been podcasts that we've benefited from. People just started to listen. People started to multitask more than ever. And I think those two things combined are what really has helped with the growth. Not to mention we've gotten better at what we do, right? So they're much better quality, better production value, more experienced narrators. So I think that's helped as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember my early days in the audio industry, right? Like whole books on one cassette, 90 minutes. I mean, abridged the hell out of best-selling novels, etc. Right? So think about a Stephen King book on 2 or 3 cassettes, and so many things were abridged. And then the libraries with unabridged. But just to add to Kim's, when the phone came into play, and Audible started putting out devices kind of ahead of its time, it kind of perked up retailers, right? And then we started working with Barnes and Noble, and they started selling more physical audiobooks. And then it was like the Kobo. I mean, Overdrive has been around in the library space basically from almost the beginning of time. But all of these retailers started to get more and more interested. And that's where we met Suzanne all these years ago, because they were aggregating to a lot of digital partners. And because it was digital, you could be around the world. So there were no limitations on the audio books and audio sales. It could be just as easily sold in Sweden as it could be in Brooklyn. So that's that led to a lot of growth rather quickly. Probably in the early 90s and mid 90s, and I think Suzanne or Irene said double-digit growth. I mean, and it's been way more than just a handful of years. It's literally been a couple of decades now where the double-digit growth has literally been year in, year out, which is absolutely tremendous. So, and to Kim's point, the podcasts have really blown it open with kids listening, particularly, right? Like a lot of growth with younger people, which has been tremendous, because when Kim and I kind of started in audio, the average listener were in their 50s and highly affluent, college educated, right? And now we have literally teens and tweens who are, listening to videos, watching videos, and getting into audio. So there's still even more growth potential.
Awesome. Yeah, that's been one of the things that's been really cool to see at Spotify is 50% of our listeners are under 34. And we try and tap into that audience that wouldn't necessarily like walk into a bookstore and read. So cool. let's go behind the scenes a little bit, since you both have spent some time in production and like done various things around that. What would you say if someone is new to audiobooks makes them really great? When you're thinking about production, design, narration, like what are your kind of guidance to people that are thinking about it and thinking about like, if I want to get into this space, what are the things that are really important?
Okay.
That's a good question.
Oh, go ahead, Kip.
I think the most important thing these days, I think, is matching the right narrator with the content. There's so much more awareness about the proper accents, proper pronunciations, and ethnicity of characters and authenticity of characters. And I think you have to really be in touch with a large pool of narrators to be able to produce the number of audiobooks that all of us are producing and have that authentic voice. I mean, consumers are so sensitive to how things sound, more so than they've ever been. So we're super careful about matching the content and the voice. I also think it's a little bit about the marketing as well, right? The behind the scenes of the studio. People love to see the narrator in action. We're amazed at how narrators who have their own following can really lift sales. That's something I still say that to print editors, and they don't believe me when I say it. So now we have a few examples where we've kind of done that on books, and they're able to see authors who we said, let's try this narrator who we know has this following and see what it does to the sales. And it's maybe the third or fourth book from the author, and they see a spike and they're like, you were right about that. And I say, yeah, because it has an impact. So I think that's super important. And it's recognizing what titles, need that kind of treatment, which is always a collaboration with the print team and our producers.
Are you willing to share a couple of those narrators that tend to do really well?
So we had Vikas Adam on the last Harlan Coben, not the new one that just came out today's Wednesday. Yesterday was actually Reese Witherspoon, but the previous one, he had always been narrated by Steven Weber, who also is a very talented audiobook narrator. But the character was slightly different, and we felt that Vikas was the right voice, and we know he's super popular in the narrator community, and it sold gangbusters. And Harlan was thrilled, the editors were thrilled. So he's a great voice to have. Scott Brick is another very popular audiobook narrator. Deanne Graham, who recently has read a couple of our Alex Cross books for us. He's also super popular among fans. So you have to know really what the fans are wanting, and the authors too. The authors listen, right? They're coming to us more and more and saying, my favorite audiobook narrator is this person, and can you get them for my audiobook? It's amazing. Never would I have imagined an author saying that even 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's so true. And I saw Irene, I see Julia Whelan. She's fantastic. I know they're like little celebrities in their own world, and the world's been getting bigger and bigger, and people will, even if they don't pick up books by certain authors, read them, listen to them because of a narrator reading them, which is tremendous and is growth for publishing, which is what we try to do in audio, right? We're trying to complement. But I think to answer Suzanne's question from my perspective, it's just an art form. It's different. It's complementary, but it is a completely different, unique experience. You could read a book all day, every day. You can listen to a book and have a completely different experience. You could have a visual book and then listen to an audiobook and it be nothing like that visual book. You get joy out of it in a different way. So it's the production as art, which is just a beautiful thing, another form of art, and, on top of just reading.
I feel like Julia didn't she win an Audie this year?
Yeah, she's won some Audies.
She's won a bunch of Audies.
Yeah, that's cool. So Anthony, Let's talk a little bit about like proudest achievements and biggest fails. Like what kind of learnings would you want to share?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we failed a lot, but we've achieved a ton. Um, I guess, being at the Grammys, being like, people think that publishing is so very glamorous, right? And we're all in it, and you all know that it's most of the times not. But having had audiobooks nominated for Grammys and having won many as a team has been just a great achievement, because it puts you on the radar in a way that is, I guess, the highest level for books. It's not a common thing, right? So for an author, like, I remember authors coming in and be like, wait, I could win a Grammy on this, or I mean, they never thought of that before when they were thinking or writing their book. So there's that. Failures, yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably block most of them out. But I don't know. There's always mistakes that are made. Sometimes, like, you might just miscast a book, to Kim's earlier point, and we have gone back, and years later, you put a book out there and you're like, well, that didn't work so well. We've re-recorded books and put them out, years after, and give it a fresh package, give it a new narrator, give it, just the audio original opportunity to do something different in that book bubbles it back up like new. And so you could almost refresh and reinvigorate a writer's career by putting something together as an audio or a new narration or, a new forward, epilogue, whatever, like something inside of that book that literally doesn't appear inside of the actual print book, right? And so that's where we get to have some fun with it.
Yeah. I would say some of the big failures are, no matter how many times we tell print editors and authors that a celebrity doesn't always make a good narrator, there's sometimes an insistence, and we've had plenty of very well-known names who get behind that microphone and really can't do it. It's a totally different skill set than a film actor or a TV actor. We find that a lot of Broadway actors actually do very well in the narration booth. But we've certainly had celebrities who've come in and not been able to complete. We've had authors, same. They come in day one and they can't. So I don't know that that's a failure, but I think that you always have to be ready and to pivot and go in a different direction. I remember the one book, Anthony, you might remember this. Remember the ambulance? The name of the ambulance was very close to Hamas, but it was pronounced something differently, but we pronounced it like Hamas. And it was
it was either Hamas or Hezbollah
or something. It was a big problem. It was a big problem.
Really big problem. Right.
It was a big problem.
Did you change the name of the book?
No, we didn't change the name of the book, but it was like a pivotal scene of the book, and we totally had it wrong, and people were upset, and the author was upset. And again, that is the beauty of the digital format. I think you can make those changes on the fly. Certainly, authors have called and said, you used a Spanish accent. It should have been an Argentinian accent. So,
exactly.
You do have the ability to change that quickly, which you don't get in the print book, right? You either have to reprint and you can't call them back. And so I think that doesn't make us any less strict about quality control and doing it right the first time. But it is nice to know that you can kind of fix it on the fly. That's one nice thing about the digital format. And you can make it better, to Anthony's point, right? You can add a chapter, you can change the voice. It's a lot easier to do it with that digital format. So, but yeah, the Grammys have been fun, and I've been lucky, and I think Anthony will agree that we've met some really interesting people from all walks of life. Everyone from, Army vets to US senators to US presidents to really famous Oscar winning actors and actresses. We've been really lucky. But that's, those days are not as frequent as just the everyday.
Yeah, the grind. I know. I wouldn't say it's a failure, but one thing I always, it's happened historically, Suzanne, that I would say to the team or to myself, wow, this is the best audiobook that nobody's going to hear. Right? Like we just worked and knocked this out of the park, and audio has been growing, but it's still a percentage of book sales. And sometimes it's 2 or 3 times or 5 times more than books sell, right? It all depends on the project. But for the most part, you're creating this beautiful interpretation of a book. And if the book doesn't sell in print or doesn't have a robust marketing and publicity campaign, well, nobody might ever hear about it. And then they might never hear about that audiobook. And so, so that to me was always like a failure, like, too bad we can't. Like it, you know how it is. It's almost like just get people to listen to a little bit of it and you hope word of mouth spreads, but that's not always the case.
Do you have any of those books that you would recommend people really listen to, or a book that you think is like really great? That, if you were going to recommend it, you'd say, go listen to this book.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. One of the ones that came to mind that I was concerned about was actually part what Kim was saying with celebrities, right? Because poetry, you would think, is a natural in the spoken word. And we did a beautiful book with John Lithgow back in the day. And it just it wasn't a huge seller, but it was poems and he read them and they were beautiful. And it was award winning. And maybe over years, it probably sold a lot more, but it started off very, very slow. And that was one that I said, oh, wow, people just need to listen to this. But the poetry or audience, right? Like Kim and I used to always joke, it's a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche, right? And so audio is a niche. It's a growing
and that's
part,
a niche
but
of a niche.
Yeah. So if you have it, you keep slicing the pie, and you hope that a lot of people could eat it. But
yeah,
at the same time, it's a small piece.
We have a book coming out that Anthony knows called The Water Remembers, which is written by someone whose heritage is Native American. And she was able to provide us with some archival recordings of her grandmother and some original music from her tribe that will all be on the recording. And she read the book herself. She's related to somebody at Blackstone, but it's a Hachette publication. And it's going to be really special. I actually heard a few chapters just last week. The producer sent them to me, and it's going to be really special. That's one of those that, right, you're not sure if anyone will hear it. It's a smallish book on our list, but it's going to be something really special and historical and really unique, something that can't be done in the print format, can really only be done on the audio format. The audio is not so much another book format as a media format. And that's how we approach a lot of our publishing today. It's about finding those people who really maybe aren't book people, but are media people, and bringing them these elements that will appeal to them because that's what they're hearing in their podcast or that's what they're hearing on their Netflix special. So those are things we really try to do to try to make the audiobook not only unique, but complementary to the book format. I say to print editors a lot, sell the print book and sell the audiobook. Why are we making them choose? Don't make them choose. Give them both in a way that they want them both.
Love that. Because people will go and get both, right? If they really love the title. That book sounds so special too. I will hit you up for that when it comes out.
Let me know if there's a party or anything, because I would definitely come to that. One other thing that Kim alluded to, and I remember having a conversation in a crowded lobby during a sales conference with a pretty popular writer, Jason Reynolds. And he didn't want to read his audiobook. And I said to him, we've used this conversation with authors, right? Like, this is historic. You reading this book, if it's near and dear to you, right, whether you're a celebrity or a famous author or otherwise, it will outlive you. It will outlive your children. It will like, this is your legacy, especially nonfiction, especially memoir, especially like, when it's your story. Not an author reading fiction, because that's a whole other thing. And
Yeah.
I don't recommend that unless they're classically trained. But really, like, nonfiction, right? If you're media savvy, it's not an easy thing to do. But if you do it and you do it well, and then people would say to us they don't want to record it, and we would just say, what? Like, this is your legacy. You're cementing it in a recording that will live forever, and that's powerful. So that's kind of the way we approach it with nonfiction.
Yeah, it's kind of come full circle, though. I think you get less of that today and more, I want to read it and not necessarily have the experience or the wherewithal to do so. I think it's kind of flipped a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Though I do have someone today, an author today, that we really hoped would read, and he has declined.
That's tough. Yeah, it's tough. And to Kim's point, it's like, okay, why don't you audition and listen to yourself, and then we'll put a couple of voices in your ear, and you let us know what you think, and you hope that they could just set their ego aside for 3.5 minutes and hear how a professional would actually read it versus them, right? So
right.
So that's the tough part.
Yeah, but if they won't, there's lots of experienced engineers and directors who we can get in the booth. There's lots of magic that can happen in post-production too.
Very delicate conversations, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really, that probably takes a lot of skill you develop over years working through that. Any other like behind the scenes stories or things you want to share? We've talked about the Grammys. We've got the Audies that are always really big every year. Happens like
dozens, hundreds.
Interested in.
The ice cubes the clear ice cubes was a request from a celebrity narrator.
Yeah. Warm chocolate chip cookies.
Toll House cookies.
Yeah. We had a very famous, still alive, celebrity that had to take a nap. Siestas. Yes. Yeah. All 6'8" of him had to fit on a love seat in the middle of the afternoon, in between sessions. So he's a giant. And
yeah. We had an author recently, actually, who came in with his very famous mother-in-law's acting coach, and he was very nervous about reading, and we actually had to go in and say, can we get you a voice coach? Because we feel like that might serve you better. So that's always fun.
Yeah. People are perfectionists out the wazoo too. Like, when you're talking about people of that stature who do it, I remember Julie Andrews was in the studio reading
so great
poems, right? Like these poems were 1 minute and 15 seconds, and 3.5 hours later, like, we didn't knock out too many of them. It's just because it's an interesting craft, especially when an author hears their book for the first time, right? Like, they've written these words, and until you hear it spoken out loud, like, how many times have authors rewritten or like asked us to not publish or print a book until the audio was finished because the amount of changes that they wanted, right? We had an author once, like, look us dead in the eye and be like, who wrote this shit? And just like it was almost like new to them, and they wanted to redo a lot of it, a lot of the time. So
Do you
So
guys
you
get
get
people
into
now though that like they're writing it with the audiobook in mind? Do you ever see that, or is it?
Yeah, we do see that. We see that a lot. We send all of our authors kind of a sheet for them to fill out for us to tell us what their, what voice they heard when they were writing. And they do often kind of write back to us and say, oh, I wrote this especially for this part for the audiobook, and here's how I imagined it. It's kind of amazing. They're all over the board. Some of them have nothing to say, and some of them send us full storyboards, like pictures from movies and actors and things that they want to communicate about how they envisioned it while they were creating it. So it's pretty interesting. And I think Anthony will agree that we love the idea of an audio first. Actually, famously, we published Rich Dad Poor Dad as an audiobook first. Most people don't know that was an audiobook before it was a print book. And there are some things that will benefit. It's a hard sell internally. I think it's an easier sell actually externally. I think agents are coming around to that concept, or even maybe audio adjacent. So the book comes out, it's more popular than people anticipated, and the author has 2 chapters that they want to add on. Well, tough to add that to the print because the trade paperback's not coming out for a year, but can we tack on 2 chapters to the audiobook, or can we do an audiobook short that's complementary to the book? Those kind of things are really appealing.
I love that. The Robert Kiyosaki, like, people had actually insinuated he was a forefather to the audio industry because not only did he was doing these lectures, right? And I believe it was in Boston. He was selling cassette tapes out of the trunk of his car because, think about it, if you're a lecturer, you can only travel so much and you could only have a limited crowd. But audiobooks, when he realized, could now be a worldwide global audience for his lectures. And the way Larry Kirschbaum, who was the CEO of Time Warner Books at the Warner Books at the time, and Time Warner Books when that merger happened, insinuated that audiobook alone created so much profit and revenue for the company that they were now able to record fiction and take some shots on books, right? Like, even then, everything was being abridged, so it was different, and unabridged was only to the libraries. But like Rich Dad Poor Dad audiobook kind of opened up the space in the audiobook industry to allow major publisher to start doing fiction when it wasn't even a thing, back then. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, and one other thing on the narration, to your earlier question, Suzanne, with like the narrator, like audiobook fans love series, as we know, sci-fi, romance, right? And it's like, good luck changing the narrator on book 7 because you're going to hear it. But an author at the same time, after they hear it, they have said to us, oh, wow, like, I have him in mind as I'm writing this because I've heard it. I remembered when I started at Time Warner, and I heard my first David Sedaris audiobook, and you could just never read him and not hear his voice again. It's like that's the power of the format. So.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Let's talk about the future a little bit. Let's switch gears and think about where audiobooks are going, because I'd love to hear any predictions that you guys have about, or opportunities about where the industry is headed.
Oh, this is the magic 8 ball moment, Anthony. Anthony and I used to have a magic 8 ball that we used to predict.
Damn, it might be in my garage in a box. I have to grab that.
I think audiobooks are about to explode in the foreign language market. That's what I think. I think that's a place that's wildly underserved, and it's just primed for audiobooks to kind of go into that space next. We're experimenting some with, Dolby Atmos files and high production quality, but I still think it's very much like what people really like about it today is just the multitasking, right? Two things at once. I've been actually interviewing for an assistant position in our department, and the candidates keep saying to me, "Oh, I listened to audiobooks when I was in college. I listened to textbooks," and I'm shocked because I think to myself how boring that would be. But they're like, "No, I did it while I was working, or I did it while I was on the treadmill." So I think also maybe the educational space, our library sales have been very robust this year. So certainly that still continues to grow. But that's where I think. But Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, international, foreign languages, you talk about libraries, right? It's also scary. Like, I'm not terrified of the future. I want to embrace it. But like we see what's happening with funding and the arts and the libraries. And it's like, we need these buildings. We need these bookstores. We, of course, support independent bookstores. I'm so happy to see Barnes and Noble like actually growing their store base, right? There's some really positive signs. And I think the beauty about audio is it could transcend when things aren't good, right? It could just kind of be there and keep going, and you don't necessarily need a building, you don't need a shelf, you don't need a retail space to be able to get people excited about audio, which is fantastic, But I do agree. I think there's so much more of the world, right? Like, it's still not a huge percentage of people that listen to books. And I think that, like, just circling back, knowing there's a lot of production people on here, we absolutely need to, and us as audio people are certainly as on the forefront as print only people. I do print and audio in this role, but it is so damn important that we continue to read books, have children that read books, like just the US test scores, right? Like, you see all these, I mean, the media just always putting, like, alarms, red flags, all this kind of stuff. But some people might say, and might say correctly, we're getting dumber, right? Like, it's scary. We need people reading. And if their parents don't read, will their children read? And like, listening to audio used to not be considered reading, but it is. And so if we can get people into books by listening, that's all a power to us together, because we need to keep printing books. We need to keep recording books. We need to make sure that long form, right? Like, Irene mentioned, or Suzanne mentioned, like, everybody in her house was gaming before this, so she had to kick them off. So this way she had enough bandwidth to kind of be clear on her call. But like, they're gaming, they're doing other things. There's so much that they could be doing, and reading long form. Like, not everybody is comfortable sitting down in front of a 300-page book, or even listening to something that might be 10, 12, 15 hours long, right? We need the attention spans to stay and to keep entertaining and educating people with books in general, whether it's print, ebook, audio, etc. So that's my little plea.
Yeah.
Well, that's the future I'd like to see, right? I'd really like to see a major retailer really support kids' audiobooks. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's an area that's been lacking, and it'd be great if somebody could get into that space and really tap into that market. There's such great content there. To Anthony's point about the books you've recorded that nobody's listened to, tons of kids' books that are just so well done. That just it's hard to get it to them.
So
middle grade, teen, tween, YA, it's all hard. Like, it doesn't perform as well, right? And you might have your book that takes off in print. And then when that happens, the audio will sell. But to Kim's point, it's a tough genre, and it's tough to get kids to listen to a book. So we're counting on people like Suzanne and Spotify to help us in that.
No
It's
pressure.
kind of a softball for my next question, though. I wanted to find out, like, if there's an audiobook feature that does not exist yet, like, what would it be that you think would be really helpful? Like, Kim, I hear you on kids. Like, Is there anything that you think like people should be thinking about or creating to tap into that opportunity, especially like with the younger kids content too?
Yeah.
Well, I know we've been working with Spotify on the PDF functionality where it surfaces the image or graphic from the PDF when it's referenced in the spoken word. So I think that could be extremely helpful and a good gateway. I'm stealing from someone's comment in the chat to getting to kids, right? Showing the images and hearing. I mean, I've had people say to me, I play the audiobook because my kid says it sounds better than me. And I'm kind of okay with that as long as the kid is still being read to in some way. So yeah, I think that feature, I don't know. There's so much mixed reviews. Sometimes I think when we do too much in the audiobook space, right? Some listeners are pure. They just want the one voice. They just want to hear the story. And then you get people who say, I want 4 voices, or I want music, and I want sounds. So it's really hard to know exactly, what the consumer wants. I know that Storytel has done this kind of pick your narrator type audiobook where it's the same story and you can choose. You want a male reader, a female reader, a British accent, an American accent. So kind of a choose your own adventure. Remember those choose your own adventure books? I love that. Also, it's like choose your own narrator. But we talked a long time about choose your own adventure audiobooks where you could choose along the way of the recording. I want to go this way next. That would be cool too.
Yeah. I mean, really, I was with R.L. Stein this weekend. He did a signing in our booth at Comic-Con, and the fan asked him about like his inspiration. And there were a lot of teachers that rolled up and were like, what can I do to get these kids to pay attention, to read, right? And he basically, I mean, he I've heard him give the answer before. He says it when he's asked, he's like, you have to put the book in front of them that they want to read, that they're excited about, the content that they want, right? Like just and like I said earlier, there's just so many things that are in front of these kids that unless somebody puts it in front of them, but even still, any parent will tell you can try to get your son or daughter to do something, and almost the more you want them to, the better chance it is that they won't. So you have to trick them into thinking this is cool. It's like, and we're probably not the right people to do that. So you have to try to get somebody who they think is cool to do it.
Although I see Irene's question about the fart noises, and I will say Kate McKinnon has many fart noises on her most recent audiobook that she won an audio for last year. It was a whole thing about fart noises in the studio that got kind of disgusting, honestly, but that Kate McKinnon, I mean, I think that's it. Anthony's right. It's who they connect to. I remember I got excited when Derek Jeter started that imprint at Simon Schuster, right? It's somebody that the kids relate to, who they want to hear from and listen to and that kind of thing.
Yeah. We're doing, we're doing a line of books now that's kind of like the modern day read along. That's what, like, okay, maybe kids don't like to read, maybe kids listen, like anything that can get them to go back and forth or do both or one or the other. Great. All the power to them. And to us. So I saw Mel's note earlier too about places, right? Like, so that's changed a lot because when we talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad way back in the 80s and early 90s, right? Like everybody was listening to the cars. The sales reps were the biggest audience, right? It was like people were just sitting in traffic listening to audiobooks. And then what we've seen over the last handful of years were, oh, now they're listening in their homes. Now they're listening on the couches. Now they're not even multitasking. They're only listening. Now they're in their beds, right? Like, okay, progress. So to answer your question, Mel, it's kind of gone from on the road to the home. And I think the, devices that Kim mentioned are listening in on us have kind of probably helped that a little bit too, because you have these universal players, right? So like people are walking around the house, everybody's listening to something, whether it's music or you can like listen to audiobooks, and people started listening a little bit more in their house over the last couple of years as the ages came down. That was good too. So that's progress for the industry.
Yeah, let's open up for some questions. I see a few, like we've been responding to some of the comments. Irene, you had asked who are the top children's and YA narrators? Kim, Anthony, any thoughts on that one?
I mean, the classic to me is always Jim Dale reading Harry Potter, right? I know Audible's getting ready to do a celeb version, but I think you cannot go wrong with those Jim Dale Harry Potters. They're just so good. So good. And also David Tennant reading the How to Train Your Dragons.
I was gonna say David
he's so amazing on those books. You just feel like you're there. It's amazing. So those are my two top recommendations, especially for boys. Those are my top two.
Yeah, and it's something like that's why, you always kind of have to stay ahead of the game and stay on the game, because as these kids grow, they're going to like different actors, different singers, different personalities, right? And so getting these people interested in books and audiobooks is going to be important for us in terms of casting too. So like the next generation, what are they going to like, right? So I saw your note, Martha, about Big Five versus boutique. Yeah, one thing about my experience was we always had, the audio teams were always like small teams inside of these big publishers. And so it was a bit of a microcosm. But believe me, when I left corporate America is just an ugly place, right? It's like, it is what you always think it is. And it's great and it's fun. And you look at the books that, Hachette and Random House and a lot of these big publishers are bringing in, you're like, oh my God, it's like a dream. They're working with some of the biggest celebrities. And not that we don't have some great books, some big celebrities. We do, but the corporation, right? So like one thing is when you're breaking your ass Monday through Friday and you're sending all your money back to Germany, let's say, right? Or wherever, versus when you're in a smaller independent and you're having success, and then you could like reinvest. Like we bought printers, we bought, we bought a device that we're spraying the edges on pages. We're reinvesting a lot of our profits into the business and getting to keep them as a small. But I kind of always ran our team as a smaller unit to kind of shield them from the ugliness of a corporate boardroom, because you work at these companies like Disney and et cetera, right? Like it's not pretty at times. So working for a family business, a lot of people say, well, family businesses, they have their own unique aspects. But fortunately for Blackstone, the family is just all about love of books, love of audio, love of passion for the industry, and passion to reinvest in the industry. So it's been a fantastic experience. And I always kind of ran my team like a family, and now I'm just part of a family business. So it was a very smooth transition for me.
Cool. I feel like I should put my old Find a Way hat on to answer Heidi's question about audiobooks and older folks. It's not a digital product, but there is this product called Playaway in your library that's like a single audiobook. Very easy, play the button, listen to the book. My father-in-law and mother-in-law and parents have loved it. Very easy to figure out, and it should be available. Playaway is now owned by PRH. So that's not a digital package, but it is a really simple thing that, like, especially if they like going to the library, should be available there. And then Kim, Anthony, if you have any other thoughts on a digital package version of that, feel free to share.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been like people either want to accept and grow, right? And
Well,
as they get older, they're either going to embrace technology or not. So, like, if somebody can use a phone, they can listen to a digital audiobook. It's really not that hard. And
yeah.
who was saying it earlier? Like, Kim just Googled something, right? It's like it's pretty damn easy. It's come a long way, and it's gotten significantly easier year over year. So it's not as intimidating as it used to be.
Yeah, I think it's also audiobooks where those people are, right? So it's maybe audiobooks on Netflix or audiobooks on YouTube where it's paid instead of pirated. That kind of where people already are. Again, it's still your phone and it's still digital, but I still think it's, you're still reaching people who maybe aren't as tech savvy for an Audible app.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like if you bought somebody an Apple gift card and they had a phone, right? Like it would be a gift to them to say, here's a gift card and here's how you get books or audiobooks on your phone or your iPad, right? Because like a lot of grandparents are reading newspapers on iPad because you can't even get a newspaper in a lot of places anymore, right? Or very few of them. So I think the gift would be sitting down with them, spending time with them, and showing them how easy it really is. And that's like part of the experience too. So,
But it's also them just knowing that they can even get the digital format from their library, right? There's
mhm,
libraries all over the country who'd be more than happy to help a library
Yeah.
patron figure out how to do it on
mhm,
their phone. And I don't think they even realize that that's an option, right? But it is.
sure, yeah,
So it's a little bit of that education too.
yeah.
Yep. Mel, we should probably answer your question as well, because we all love listening to human narrators, but what do you guys think about where and how AI will be an option? Like, what is the right way to approach that?
Well, you have to embrace it because it's not going away. Can't be afraid of it. I think most publishers are asking themselves the question of what's better. It doesn't get published as an audiobook at all because the production is too expensive to justify what the anticipated sales will be. Or do you have an AI narration so that at least it's available? Right.
Yeah.
That's the question. And I think authors have a really different reaction to that question, which is completely understandable. Um, I also think I don't know what the right answer is, and I think it's back to what Anthony was saying about audio being such a small industry. The Audio Publishers Association is a really strong group, and I think it's great that we're all involved with that, and we all kind of communicate about these major issues, and we'll come to a conclusion that makes the most sense and protects creativity and protects our authors and content for sure. I also think that there's lots of opportunities for using AI in post-production, for translation to foreign languages, for cloning voices versus AI narration. That's a slightly different thing. For an author or a narrator who's passed, should the family be able to license that voice to narrate audiobooks? I
Mhm.
mean,
There's a lot
right?
of questions to
A
figure
lot of
out,
questions.
right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to look at it in its useful mechanisms. I understand why authors as artists are, like it's their baby. They give birth to their book, right? Like this is all they care about. Would you just want to hand your baby, oh, here, have a computer do it. Have a computer generated voice read my book. It's not the best option. It's still like they're working on it. It sounds better. But to Kim's point, if the only way it could exist is having that, and then maybe down the road there's a human, but the narrators were among the very first SAG-AFTRA, the unions. They have been concerned for many, many years, and I said to Kim, Suzanne, and Irene on our pre-call, it was last week or so that I saw a commercial for a movie that had an AI actor as a lead, and I was like, oh shit, pardon my French. It was really frightening that, oh wow, we're going there. No wonder why these actors have been so concerned. But I just can't. It's an art form, right? And so you use it to your advantage. It's good for post-production. It's good for editing. It could help you do more things more quickly and possibly more efficiently, better, more effectively, so you could use it for that. But AI narration, it doesn't sound great. It's like for
it's
an
not there.
article, for like a few minutes, if you're reading a news article, yeah, you might be able to get away with it. But for 10 hours, it's like, yikes, so.
It's not there yet. It's good and it's better than it's been, but it's not the magic solution yet.
We're coming up on time. So we had some speed round questions that we were going to ask. I'm not sure we're going to have time for all of them, but I thought maybe we could do one and kind of leave our audience a parting gift of like, if a listener could only listen to one audiobook in their lifetime, what would you recommend?
Oh, come on.
Well, the other way could be, what's the most surprising place you've ever listened to an audiobook? So like pick which one you want to answer.
I would say if you've never listened to an audiobook, Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. It's a great introduction into the format.
That is great. Yeah.
Yeah. I think comedy, right? Natural. Pick up an audiobook of what you like to read. It's like, if you love romance, check it out. Like, a lot of times people who don't listen to audiobooks say, oh, it's too slow, right? You could bump up the speed. You could listen to it at 1.5 times, 2 times, right? Like you could, so whatever the reason you have for not wanting to listen to an audiobook, I say it doesn't hold water. There's a way around it. But anyway, craziest place I've listened to it. I've listened to audiobooks everywhere, doing everything. I remember the beauty about it is like when you're listening to a book, like I could see where I was at that time. It's almost like, where were you when JFK got shot? Like, or whatever, right? Like when I'm crossing a street, like I remember when I'm hearing a book exactly where I was in Midtown Manhattan at that point, but that's the beauty of it. You can be doing other things, going to the gym, taking a walk, walking the dog. I've been shoveling snow. I've been, doing like literally anything, riding a bicycle. It's just like, be safe, but you can actually consume your favorite author or your favorite content while you're multitasking and doing other things.
I would say dentist.
Dentist, yeah. You don't want to hear what's going on.
Exactly. I think we've run out the clock here.
Yes, this was a really amazing conversation. This was super excellent. I really want to thank you, Anthony, Kim, and Suzanne. This has been so informative and wonderful. I wish we had more time. I have recorded this program, so this will be circulated to our various outlets. And I want to thank everyone in the audience who has tuned in and being part of this community and this conversation. Before we leave tonight, I want to briefly mention that our next event is next week on October 22nd at Bleecker Street Bar, where we're holding our book swap and sharing a few drinks. So if you are going to be there, if you have signed up and you're going to be there, I will see you there. Let's everyone give a round of applause to our participants here. This has been such an excellent conversation.
Thank you, Irene.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the invite, Kim. And I wish I was at Bleecker Street Bar right now having a cocktail. That sounds fun.
Sounds really nice.
Send you the link if it's still up. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.